Ascent Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Happy Inbox: How to Have a Stress-Free Relationship with Your Email and Overcome Your Communication Clutter by Maura Nevel Thomas. Narrated by Maura Nevel Thomas. Dedication. I am so grateful to my mother for her decision to move us close to family when I was a baby. That move gave me a rock-solid group of people who've been such an important constant in my life. This book is dedicated to those childhood neighbors who have become lifetime friends and extended family. Karen and the McGillicuddies, Shannon and the Murphys, Dennis and the O'Neills, and also Karen, Kelly, Joyce, Marianne, and Laura. Thank you for being my village. I love you all. The Empowered Productivity Series. My first book, Personal Productivity Secrets, was the first published work detailing my empowered productivity system, which I had been delivering to clients for many years. Since then, the world of work has continued to evolve. It has left the confines of the office. I write this now in quarantine because of the global COVID-19 pandemic. Knowledge workers are required to be more creative and innovative than ever before, but they have less and less time and space to marshal their mental resources in a thoughtful way because of the countless and increasing demands on their attention. In the decades since I wrote that book, I've been honored to work with some of the world's most influential leaders and brands. That experience has both refined my thinking and given me the opportunity to defend it in some of the country's most prestigious business outlets. The result is the latest evolution of the empowered productivity system, which has been put through much more rigorous testing and refining, incorporating input and feedback now from over 40,000 professionals. This book, detailing the communication management portion of the system, is the third in the Empowered Productivity series from Ignite Reads, after Attention Management: How to Create Success and Gain Productivity Every Day, published in 2019, and From To Do to Done: How to Go From Busy to Productive by Mastering Your To-Do List, published in June of 2021. I'm confident that the latest version of my empowered productivity system, as presented in this series, is the best it's ever been. I'm excited and humbled to join you on your journey to peak productivity and to help empower your ability to achieve the results that are most significant to you, personally and professionally. I look forward to seeing the results as more and more people like you can bring your unique gifts to the world in a way that inspires, motivates, and excites you rather than exhausts, overwhelms, and stresses you. Introduction: Managing Communication and Information. Our biggest productivity hurdle today might just be our communication. Our crazy inboxes, our constant phone notifications. In the modern workplace, we must navigate the always-on pings from technology that distract us and entrap us in a constant state of task switching. You know how this feels. You're trying to work on something, but then there's an email to answer, then a text message, and oh look, a social media notification. Spending your days reacting to these distractions isn't just unproductive. It also means you aren't in the driver's seat of your own life. Constant reaction means relinquishing control rather than being intentional. In this communication management component of the Empowered Productivity System, you'll learn more about how to conquer the distractions caused by information and communication overload, and how to get out from under communication debt so you can live a life of choice, one of action, not reaction. The concept of communication debt seems to have been coined by tech entrepreneur Henry Poydar. To paraphrase, it's that state of feeling like you always owe return communication to someone. It's the subtle sense of anxiety caused by your backlog of communication, taunting you with the little red indicators on the communication apps on your phone. Texts, voicemails, missed calls, social media notifications, plus the mountain of outstanding email piling up in your inbox even as you listen to this. This book will also help you enjoy the other benefits that come from managing communication and information effectively. You'll reduce anxiety caused by digital and paper clutter. You'll minimize the amount of communication you send and receive. You'll be able to retrieve information you need quickly. You'll collaborate more effectively. The first step in managing communication is to tackle your inbox. The strategies that follow will help you de-stress, declutter, and regain control over your email. Chapter 1. Getting your email under control. We're starting with email for a reason. It attacks our productivity on a variety of fronts. Too many email messages are unimportant, which makes those that are important difficult to recognize. Those unimportant messages steal time that you could be spending on proactive, focused work. The constant stream of incoming emails distracts you and causes you to get stuck in reactive mode. A full inbox weighs on you and creates stress. Email frequently contains tasks you must accomplish, so when you aren't in control of your email, you aren't in control of your workload. Bad email habits impede collaboration and create inefficiency among colleagues, weighing down organizations. It's important to note that there's no magic bullet for managing email. No app or feature or trick is going to instantly get your inbox under control. But there are 4 specific reasons that people get buried under a mountain of email, and Empowered Productivity offers a solution for each one. If you follow the steps outlined in this book, you'll soon be relieved of the stress that an inbox or inboxes with hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of messages is causing you. Your inbox is for receiving messages, not storing them. Part of the problem with the stress of email is that we're so used to it, we are often convinced that it isn't there. It's hard to recognize the magnitude of the stress we're under until we're not under it anymore. I often speak with people in my engagements who say, yes, I have thousands of messages in my email inbox, but who cares? I know what's been dealt with. This means they are using their inbox for storage. But your inbox is not for storing messages. It's for receiving and processing messages. Let's consider for a minute your physical mailbox at your home or office. I know that a lot of snail mail isn't important anymore, but if you're old enough to remember when everything important came in the mail, or if you can imagine the world before electronic communication when everything was delivered as physical mail, let's do a little exercise. Picture the physical mailbox at your house or office. Imagine that every day you got the mail, opened it, looked at it, and then put it all back in the mailbox. Tomorrow, your letter carrier comes and puts that day's mail on top of the mail you've already looked at. Then imagine this process happens day after day after day. Yes, you'll have to imagine your mailbox is much bigger than it actually is. You've looked at all the mail, you've noted the bills that need to be paid and the other correspondence that needs attention, but it's all piled in with everything else, including a lot of junk mail. Maybe you throw some of that away, but there are some catalogs and flyers that you think you might want to check out sometime, so those are in the pile too. After a month or two of all your new mail being piled on top of your opened mail and things you might want to look at someday, are you really sure you're on top of everything that needed attention? Wouldn't you be a little concerned that you might have missed something important? Doesn't the pile just get more daunting and more cluttered with each passing day? It's not a perfect analogy, but that's mostly what it's like when you use your email inbox to store messages you've already looked at. I'm not saying you shouldn't save whatever messages you want to save. I'm just saying you shouldn't store things that you've already read in your inbox. Here's the way most people deal with their email in my experience. 1. Read every message as it comes in or as soon as you can. 2. If it's definitely junk, delete it. 3. If it doesn't require a reply, leave it in your inbox and move on to the next message. 4. If it needs just a quick reply, send that, leave the message in your inbox, and move on to the next message. 5. If it needs a more lengthy reply or maybe contains other tasks you need to complete before you can reply, mark it as unread or flag it so you know you need to deal with it later. I call this behavior skim and skip. Now I have 3 questions for you, and you need to be honest with yourself when you consider your answers. 1. Do those 5 steps mostly describe how you deal with your email? 2. When you hear me say it, does it really seem efficient to you? 3. How many times do you read the same message over again? There is a better way, and the first step is recognizing that storing all messages in your inbox, read, unread, not requiring action, maybe requiring action, and definitely requiring action, is a big part of the problem. Instead, start thinking about your email inbox as the place where incoming messages land, and your goal for your inbox is to read those messages, make a decision about them, and move them out of your inbox as quickly as you can. This doesn't mean you have to complete all the required actions that every email demands. It just means you have to capture the necessary actions in the correct place, usually your task manager. Check out the prior book in the series, From To Do to Done, for more on this. And then move the email out of your inbox to an appropriate storage location. You don't filter. The second reason that most people find themselves buried in email is because we all get more than we could ever read. So for greater efficiency, we need to filter the messages in a way that makes them more manageable. Chances are your inbox holds a wide assortment of email, from spam to newsletters to discount offers to important communications from your boss or colleagues. With all these different and varied messages vying for your attention, it's overwhelming to sort everything out and take appropriate action. The second step of communication management in the Empowered Productivity System is to make smarter use of email filters. The email we receive can fall into one of 4 categories. 1. Spam. 2. Unwanted robomail, mass messages sent via an email marketing service. 3. Wanted robomail. 4. Work. Real messages from individual people addressed specifically to you. The following is advice for automated handling of each type to save you time and effort. 1. Spam. I'm sure you have an idea what spam is, but let's define it in the context of empowered productivity. Spam is malicious messages from unscrupulous companies that don't follow laws and norms of ethical marketing. They try to trick you into giving out sensitive information, add malware or spyware to your computer, infect your computer with a virus, or use other malicious or underhanded tactics. Sometimes we lump other kinds of messages into the category of spam, but in this context, I mean messages that truly aren't legitimate and that you never want to receive. Email hosting providers, software, apps, and cybersecurity features are getting better and better at preventing these messages from ending up in your inbox, so you may never see them. If you do, you should report them to your company IT department or your email hosting provider. If you're ever suspicious about a message, even if it seems to come from someone you know, don't click any links. Reach out to that person via a different medium and confirm they sent it. 2. Unwanted robomail. Robomail is a term used to describe automated marketing messages. They are mass mailings sent via email marketing services that are usually triggered by an action you've taken, such as making a purchase, taking advantage of an offer, or requesting information or support assistance. Sometimes people you meet at business functions will also add you to their newsletter list without asking, which is rude, but usually not malicious. Many people offhandedly refer to messages in this category as spam, but they aren't. You can tell the difference because a legitimate marketing message from a reputable company will have an unsubscribe link somewhere in the message. Technically, reputable companies shouldn't send you marketing messages without your permission, but the definition of permission is applied broadly. I'm sure you get plenty of these messages that you don't want and you don't read. These messages fall into the unwanted robomail category. There are a variety of techniques you can use to automatically prevent these messages from ending up in your email inbox. First, click the unsubscribe link in the message. These are usually handled by a third-party email marketing service that will automatically prevent future messages from that company being sent to you. Next, use an unsubscribe service. These are increasingly popular and can work well. You can do an internet search for the term and find a comparison page to evaluate them, or post on social media to ask your friends and contacts what services they use. You'll probably have some tech-savvy friends who've tried many and can make a good recommendation for you. Next, create a rule in your email application so any messages coming from that specific email address or that domain, such as @XYZ company, will automatically be diverted to your trash folder. For information on unsubscribed services I use and recommend, and instructions on creating rules in the most popular email applications, visit maurathomas.com/control-your-tech. You might find that just one or some combination of these techniques is necessary. For a while, it will take an extra few seconds per message to deal with unwanted robomail, but after a few days or a week, the number of messages you receive in this category should drastically decrease, providing a big return on that time investment. 3. Wanted robomail. These are similar to the prior category, but the difference is that you actually want these messages. They could be newsletters you enjoy reading, advertisements from the companies you frequently do business with, or newsletters from groups you belong to. Some of these you read regularly, and some of them you read only infrequently, but you wouldn't mind receiving them if they didn't distract you. The empowered productivity technique for handling these types of messages is to divert them from your primary inbox to a place where you can review them at your convenience. Many of the unsubscribed services mentioned earlier provide this kind of repository, like a web page, an app for your device, or both, and will send you one digest message daily with a link to each message. You can scroll through the digest and or open the app or web page when you want to review the messages individually. You can also create rules for these types of messages so they get diverted into a newsletter or similarly named folder so you can peruse them at your convenience. But I really like the digest feature of some services. These suggestions are useful for lists you're already on with your primary email address. Another necessary step is to prevent future robomail from landing in your primary email inbox. One way to do this is by having a free secondary account that you use to subscribe to things such as when you make what you expect to be a one-time purchase, or when you need to provide your email address in exchange for information you would like to receive. You can scroll through that secondary account at your leisure to see if there's anything that interests you. A second way to prevent future robomail from landing in your primary inbox is to use a service that creates a dynamic email address through a browser plugin. If you visit a page that asks for your email address in exchange for something you want, the plugin will offer you the opportunity to create one of these dynamic email addresses instead of providing your primary email address. All messages sent to that dynamic email address go to one repository location, as I described earlier, and you can opt to receive one daily digest with a summary of all the messages received. Unsubscribed services also offer the opportunity to block access in the future if you decide never to receive those messages again, so unsubscribing isn't necessary. These services, daily digests, and block access options provide an advantage over the free secondary address I described before. For example, You may have noticed that it's very common for books like this one to offer supplemental information on a website, such as the links I've included throughout this book, which is sometimes only available by providing your email address. Authors do this for several reasons. First, we believe that if you are interested enough to read our book, you are likely to be interested in other information from us, and we'd like to be able to connect with our readers. Second, it helps us to keep the books shorter and more concise. If you want supplemental information, it's available to you, but the main information in the book can be faster and easier to consume. Lastly, it helps to keep the information current. The publishing world moves slowly, and recommending services in a book that may not be published for a year or more can make parts of the book outdated before it even ends up in your hands. This way, we can keep the information fresh and relevant. Depending on the book and how relevant you feel the information is, by employing the techniques discussed, you can opt to receive the messages at your primary email address so you can read them soon after they arrive, or you can also receive them at your secondary email address or repository for your new email management service, either of which you can review at your convenience. I receive some of my most relevant but routine communications via these dynamic email address services. 4. Work. The last category of email is individual messages from real people addressed specifically to you. These are messages from coworkers, clients, prospects, vendors, friends, and colleagues. They are messages that you need or want to read, so I put these in the category of work. The goal with the email filtering technique of empowered productivity is that the only messages that reach your primary inbox are messages that fall into this category. This filtering technique automatically prevents you from having to sift through thousands of messages and try to prioritize what needs your attention the soonest. By employing the tactics described earlier, you'll minimize the number of messages that arrive in your primary inbox every day, and you'll know that whatever arrives there will need your attention sooner rather than later. Personally, I've reduced the volume of email I receive by over 70% by employing a combination of these techniques. You have the wrong perspective on email. The third reason people get buried in their email is because, in my experience, a lot of professionals seem to believe they should be able to squeeze in managing email around their real work. They view it as an extra activity they need to do in addition to their work. But the fact is, email in the last category is real work, and you must treat it like real work that takes real time. Those messages from your boss, your colleagues, your customers, and your vendors merit your focused attention, not just a quick glance and a dashed-off reply between meetings. Once you've shifted your thinking to recognize these types of emails as real work, you then have to allow that it takes real time to address these messages in a thoughtful way so you can make a favorable impression on colleagues, supervisors, clients, prospects, and others in your professional and personal networks, and keep your commitments to them. There have been many predictions about the demise of email. And while studies show the volume has dropped a bit in the last decade, it's been holding steady recently. I expect email communication to be something we'll continue to use professionally for a long time. After appropriate filtering, the professionals I work with receive about 100 emails a day, and this is in line with email surveys at the time of this writing. If we figure that on average, each of those emails takes about 2 minutes to process, then we're looking at almost 3.5 hours a day just to manage email. Now consider that these same professionals typically also have several hours of meetings each day, and you can see why there's a problem. If this describes you, you aren't just drowning in email you don't have time to address. This email overload is also hampering your ability to get anything else done. The overflow work is probably seeping into your personal life, causing you to check email at the dinner table, at your child's school functions, late into the night, and during vacations, because it seems like constant checking is the only way to stay on top of it. but this robs you of the time you need to rest and rejuvenate. Consider this a wake-up call. If this describes you, you're headed for burnout, and it's important that you get real about your schedule and everything that's on your plate. Your email is full of actions you need to take. You probably didn't realize it at the time, but all the work you put into setting up your calendar and your task list using the action management component of the Empowered Productivity System, detailed in the prior book in this series, From To Do to Done, will now help you manage your email. Here's why. The last reason most people's email inbox gets overwhelming is because they use it as a task list. But if you've read From To Do to Done, you know more about how to manage your actions, and you might recognize at least 2 reasons why using your email as a task list isn't helpful. First, not everything you have to do comes to you via email. So if you have some of your tasks from your thoughts, meetings, and other communication channels in your task manager, and some of your tasks in your email inbox, it's like trying to do a puzzle when half the pieces are in the dining room and half the pieces are in the kitchen. You don't have a good handle on everything that's on your plate, and you can't allocate your attention appropriately. Also, if you leave a message in your inbox that is really 1 or more tasks you have to complete, you can't know without reading the email again and again and again exactly what needs to be done, by when, and how you should prioritize it given everything else you're working on. But if you implement the Empowered Productivity System, including for managing your actions, you can escape this trap. Instead of checking your email repeatedly to stay on top of your work, you can move tasks or commitments out of your inbox and into your task manager. This ensures you're on top of everything you need to do, allows you to organize and prioritize appropriately, and gives you the peace of mind of knowing that nothing will fall through the cracks. Chapter 2. Being reactive versus being responsive. The prospect of handling your email differently might make you feel a little anxious. I'd like to have more control and feel less overwhelmed, you may be thinking, but my job requires me to be responsive. Is it really possible to do both? Absolutely, but there's an important distinction to make here. You do have a responsibility to respond to the many daily emails and other communications you receive in a timely manner. Of course, the definition of timely varies according to the specific message, and it's something you need to determine for yourself. But it's probably longer than you assume. I've worked with companies whose employees felt that delivering anything less than an immediate response meant they weren't providing good customer service. However, email is not a synchronous communication tool, meaning a real-time back-and-forth dialogue such as when you are having a conversation. Therefore, it's inefficient to treat it as one. In most industries, checking email periodically throughout the day is sufficient. Email is in fact asynchronous, intended to have a built-in time delay of minutes, hours, or even days between communications. You do not have an obligation to constantly and immediately act on every piece of communication you receive. If you try, you'll never get anything important done. You'll also be training yourself to become bored in the absence of that constant stimulation. Focus and concentration are like any other skill. If you don't use them, you lose them. The empowered productivity techniques for staying on top of your email ensure that you can be thoughtfully responsive and also keep email from dominating your days. The things you shouldn't do with email. The following tactics might make you feel like you're doing something to get your email under control, but they're actually counterproductive. First, marking emails that require action as unread or with a flag so that you'll come back to them later. It's not efficient to read the same email more than once. Next, assigning categories to the messages in your inbox. Next, leaving your email inbox open and visible so that each new message calls your attention away from whatever else you were doing. The problem with these practices is that they make it necessary to check multiple places, such as your task list and your inbox, to get the full picture of everything that's...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?